XCN XRP XLM and Solana comparison. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name's Neil, keeping tech analysis short and sweet. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Donate. 50% goes to save animals' lives. All right, so Bitcoin did almost exactly what I had stated previously. We had the pullback, which was expected. We closed, but we built a higher low. And with that, I was stating if this can get a little bit of volume, and we can close above this previous red or orange candle, then we could have a bullish continuation. And we closed, meaning that this is a bullish engulfing. And then we had the continuation right up into the previous area that we were considering support. Getting a little bit of rejection, we could see this consolidate again and then start building up to finish out an inverse head and shoulders is what I'm thinking. But it's kind of a waiting game. So I actually want to show real quick, because I'm going to bring up Solana, that in 2021, what happened in 2021? Let's pull up Solana for comparison. Solana went from roughly $3 in the beginning of 2021 up to $55 within a few months. And then we had this major drop off, and that was around May 22nd. So from $3 to 55, and then Bitcoin pulled back on May 22nd. What happened May 22nd of 2021? Well, this area happened. Massive drop towards the 200 EMA. Started holding underneath that 200 EMA for a while, and then right around here, July 24th, it started to pick back up until November. Now comparing that to Solana, it was down for the similar time, being pushed down but holding above the 200 EMA. And then August, November 22nd, right around here was when Bitcoin peaked out and then crashed for multiple years. So this green box here is around 6 months, I believe. Is 90 days within this area, and then this box here was 45 days before ultimately peaking out. So for example, Solana went from $3 more or less to $258 within roughly the year. If you don't think XRP or XLM or XCN can be doing something similar, I mean, it's the crypto market. You guys are going to learn real quick that this thing will keep running and running. And you guys sold at the first little blip up at $74. Maybe you saw it run up to 55, did the pullback, and then you bought at 30. You doubled your money to 70, and you missed the rest of this run. A lot of people were getting trapped within this area whenever it was doing its pullback. And this is when you would be looking at selling because it's way away from the 200 EMA. And it's way above the CM guppy. It's just parabolic. So it needed to have that retracement and build a bottom before it could make to that new all-time high. This area is more or less what I believe we are currently seeing. We're going to see a little bit last of a peak out for Bitcoin, and the rest of the market is going to follow suit with it. Now comparing that to XRP, we're going to pull up XRP on crypto.com for a comparison. Crypto, it's a little bit cleaner of a chart. For years, XRP was working within a downward wedge like XCN. Then it went sideways, started building higher lows, pushed up, tested this downward resistance, got rejected. Tried again and again, kept getting rejected. This was due to the SEC trying to sue them for billions. And they eventually won the lawsuit and only had to pay $125 million. But we have this black line here, which is showing essentially what is happening in XCN. So we had the sideways movement consolidation, holding underneath that 200 EMA, and then instantly got over it and out of that downward trend line. And then we had some consolidation, a little bit of hopium here, a little bit of fear, and then once we eventually held over that 200 EMA, it shot from 50 cents to nearly $3. XCN is going to be doing what Solana did back whenever it was $2 to $3. So when Bitcoin starts to run, XCN is going to freak out and it is going to run like no other. So stack your bag of XRP, XCN. XRP is going to run like no other. XCN is working within that same pattern that we are looking at with XRP. So within this wedge, when we pull up XCN, we are working within a wedge, right? And it seems to be holding very nicely within what we have drawn here, but I still believe there's the possibility for a liquidity sweep for one last bull pullback on Bitcoin. Moving further into the future with Bitcoin, we are here. It had its 30 to 35% pullback like it just had a few months ago, grabbed a bunch of liquidity, and then is now ready to run back up. Me personally, that's what I think. None of this is financial advice. It's not a get-rich-quick or pyramid scheme or anything like that. Bitcoin did do a bullish engulfing. That's the main thing you want to keep in mind, is it had that sell-off and then immediately bought up back right where it was before it had that daily sell-off. And we can dig into this even further and look into the 4 hour where it gets a little bit more nerve-wracking watching the 4 hour, but it's a little bit more reliable. 200 EMA is right here. We're getting a little resistance at that 200 EMA. That's typical. We may see a little consolidation. We may see a little pullback, but ultimately this 200 EMA is starting to get real nice and tight, which will make it easier to cross over. And then we'd be working within that 98 range and higher. If it can break the 98, then we expect pushing up to around 106, 108. And that's just looking at the 4 hour. Everybody who watches this channel tends to be here for XCN, so the information I can give you is still we have the possibility to sweep down here to around that 0.003 if we break the red trend line, considering it a bear trap because it will not be going lower than that, and it would immediately be pushing back up within this wedge of the red 2 lines that we have. We want to see a little bit of consolidation. If you were looking at this in an inverted scale, you could consider this a potential double top. If you don't know what a double top is, look it up. But typically double tops have a tendency to push the coin in the opposite direction. Pretty scary stuff whenever you're a bull and you get a double top. But since this is a double bottom, since it's a bear, it could be a double bottom, but nothing is set in stone, as this one did close a little bit below this previous low. So we can still see that push down. If you're holding on to XCN, hold on a little bit longer. But looking at the RSI, we are building higher lows. So we can expect some consolidation and potential move upward with Bitcoin starting to move up as well. So constantly reminder, XRP, keep stacking that bag, because if you missed your 50-cent opportunity, $2 is still very cheap. Compare it to Solana when it was $2. Even though it took some time, it made it to 253 within 1 year. That is a bull cycle. $2 turning into 253. I would be throwing every single penny I had at this, selling everything I can, make a cookie business, do some dark money, and $2 to 258. You would have wished you put it in at $2. Now Solana's sitting around 141, a little bit pricier than a $2 entry. XRP is only at $2. So just throwing that out there. And also for XCN, if you're looking at XLM as a correlation, this one did build a higher low, but it's still working within a channel. It's building up towards the 50, like I had just said the previous video. And we can see this be pushing up through the CM guppy and essentially testing the downward trend line and 200 EMA at the same time. Most likely get some rejection, some support near 27, and then eventually have to cross out of that channel, which I'll do a separate video on QNT for an explanation, but QNT is a prime example. Last thing I'm bringing up in this video is Tornado Cash, still very healthy, holding above the 200 EMA reference link to trade it on MEXC in the description below. 20 USDT free if you use that reference link. And it's free money, all-time high of 459 for Tornado Cash. Buy some merch if you want, donate. 50% goes to save animals' lives. I'll see you guys on the next one.